Hello, Bryson, and welcome to Queer Magic. And I'd like to acknowledge that I'm sitting on the land of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Atawandawan, and striving to be a good settler in that space. I want to. I thought it'd be really great to do an interview with you because it's Pride Month and Indigenous History Month, and I know you as ace Twitter person, recently published media interviewee. You were on TV as well, I think, and also on Instagram. So, and I've been following your work for a while, and including your production of ribbon skirts and the metal things. What are they called?
Oh, jingle cones.
Jingle cones. Thank you. Sorry, brain went completely blank there for a second. Seen many of them on dresses at powwows, so I should know that. It's been too long since I've been able to get to a powwow. That totally sucks. Yeah, so tell us a bit about yourself and your tradition.
Kwe, that means hello in Mi'kmaq. I'm Mi'kmaq. We reside in Nova Scotia, PEI, New Brunswick, Gaspé Peninsula, and Maine. We're part of the Wabanaki Confederacy. That includes the Penobscot, Passamaquoddy, the Abogway, and the Maliseet. Yeah, so I am in Unama'ki, which is Cape Breton. That's how you say it. Yeah, and I am a activist here in Nova Scotia. I do a lot of work with trying to, do anti-Indigenous racism, and just do some allyship workshops and stuff like that. So yeah,
which have been very helpful. So yeah, I think so that whole area, the areas you mentioned, that would all be Mi'kmaq, right?
My light just went. Oh well, we can do it without the light, I guess. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. So the Nova Scotia, PEI, New Brunswick, and Maine, and the other thing you said, that's all Mi'kmaq, right? That whole area.
Yeah, Gaspé, Quebec, which is like the peninsula.
Yeah, that's cool. Because quite often you see a map, and the map has, here is Mi'kmaq, and you go, okay, I don't know my colonial geography names well enough to go, oh yeah, as a recently arrived person who basically went, right, okay, I'm going to learn about Indigenous stuff before I do anything else. So and yeah, so tell us a bit about your position on the queer landscape.
Well, I identify as Two-Spirit, but mostly I identify as gay, just for simplicity's sake.
Cool. So the term Two-Spirit was coined in 1990 in the conference in Winnipeg, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So did the Mi'kmaq culture have an equivalent concept? Presumably.
Well, yeah, we did. However, us Mi'kmaq people have been dealing with colonialism since the early 1600s. So unfortunately, like all of our teachings for our Two-Spirit people have been erased. Yeah, so we don't have any like traditional teachings on it. So we kind of borrow from a little bit of here and there. And we're like, I'm in a group that we're trying to reclaim it and become what we were, or what we should be in Mi'kmaq culture.
Mm. Yeah, that's great. And so obviously hopefully the Mi'kmaq culture is welcoming and inclusive towards its Two-Spirit members.
Well, it is. It isn't. Unfortunately, like we, being so deep in colonialism, the church is very prevalent in Mi'kmaq culture. So, like it hasn't been well received.
Mm.
Yeah. So, like we're slowly changing that, but we're at the beginning steps. So,
Wow.
like it's going to take a while.
Yeah. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking how much was destroyed by colonialism and, let's face it, Christian supremacy. Because
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I was saying to you on Twitter the other day, like all the pagan cultures in Europe were just like flattened by the coming of Christianity.
Yeah.
And in some cases there were actually huge massacres of the pagans. Like Prussia, for example, the entire population of Prussia was wiped out and replaced with Teutonic Knights, which was
Wow.
really scary. I mean, obviously this is hundreds of years ago, but that's why we're going, right, okay, we're just kind of, some of the stuff got written down by Christian monks and the like.
Yeah.
Like, right, okay, just picking through the remnants, trying to find what and in our case it's hundreds of years ago, so but also in the case of Mi'kmaq culture too.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. So, I think of it as like it's kind of a speed bump kind of way. Like, like, yes, we lost our way, but what we're gaining now is something that's more inclusive and more, like blend of different things, and it's going to be something beautiful.
Yeah, well, I hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's looking good so far.
Yeah.
Oh, and I meant to say as well, your one of the first things I came across that you were doing was the Mi'kmaq word of the day on Twitter as well. Because it's so important to have the language, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, it is. And like I started that because I I don't speak my language, and I just wanted to find a way to like just do something and learn a word a day, and that's how that became. And like people, at first I started, like it was just like just text, and then people are like, well, like how do you say that? I'm like, I don't know. So after a while people challenged me to do videos, and I am not a video person. So like I just did them short and simple, and like, and I think people enjoyed them. Unfortunately, I don't do it anymore, but I am going to be bringing that back in the near future.
Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was wonderful. Yeah, I mean, my Indigenous language knowledge is like, I can say thank you in 3 different languages.
Yeah.
Which is the start. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's terribly difficult, the whole coming to the collision of Christian stuff with everything. And it's so difficult to reclaim what was lost.
Yeah.
And then
oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, and also in our case, try to avoid cultural appropriation, because it's something that I've written a lot about it and try, and yet there are still people who think that the fact that we call the quarters and cast a circle is culturally appropriating from Indigenous cultures. I was like, no, it's just that they're really similar. So
yeah, like there's what is that word, similar practices have formed co-currently, I believe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like they're both earth honoring,
Yeah.
earth affirming things, so you would expect there to be some similarity, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Because one of the reasons that I you know, want to encourage more pagans to a be allies to Indigenous people, but also like not romanticize you guys. You know, it's like there's always that tendency to kind of go, oh yes, the noble, you know,
Yeah.
and I mean, you know, the culture is beautiful, but that doesn't like romanticizing it isn't going to help in any way.
No, not at all.
So I think we have to curb that tendency in a big way. So yes, and obviously the big thing that's happened. I mean, I think the discovery of the actual physical evidence of the children in the residential school burial grounds. I mean, it's like if people had actually read the summary of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, they would have known that there were going to be unmarked graves. But I think, you know, it still hit me like a sack of wet sand when I learned about it. You know, it's just. And I know.
And unfortunately, you know, like they just found 2 more sites, and you know, it's just heartbreaking to think about it. You know, like it like makes me tear up instantly. You know.
I know. I was just crying over the video with the people drumming and the whale coming. Yeah, it's the thought that they would have had children and those children would have had children, and you know, there's a whole sort of tree of people missing because of that.
You know, and a vast majority of them would have been elders right now.
Yeah.
You know, and they would have had that knowledge of our cultures, and you know, like be passing that down to, you know, my generation and the generation after me. You know, so it's the whole, it just snowballs of how much effect that it caused. You know, like that these children died at such a young age.
Yeah. And just the thought of them alone and, you know, afraid and not allowed to speak their language and not allowed to, you know, offer each other comfort even.
Yeah.
And it's just, I can't, you know, it's really hard to imagine how anyone could be so callous as to behave like that towards anyone, but especially a child.
Yeah, you know, like it just like, you know, my mom attended residential school, and like I remember her telling me about when her father passed away. You know, like she was I think 8 at the time when he passed away, and they just, you know, like they lined up her brothers and sisters in the, I believe, the cafeteria of the school, and just said, you know, your father's dead, get back to class. You know, and like, and the boys and the girls were separated, like they weren't allowed to interact with each other and stuff like that, and even like, you know, together they weren't allowed to interact with their siblings even if they were in the same dormitory. And you know, it's just heartless to hear things like that, you know.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I heard that, you know, it's like my thing is always believe survivors, always. But there was this one thing that was so bizarre that I was like, okay, the survivors said it must have happened, but it's so bizarre that it was that the nuns were trying to scrub the brown off people's arms. How?
Yeah, that happened in the Shubenacadie residential school. I know Isabel said that, you know, like one nun didn't like the girl's freckles, so she used a wire brush on her.
Oh my God.
So yeah, it happens, you know.
Yeah, but it was the ignorant. I mean, just the sheer ignorance of it. It just,
yeah.
I mean, it's evil. It is evil.
Yeah, plain and simple.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, I couldn't ever be anything to do with that organization because it's just so, you know, and I mean, at least the other churches have, you know, apologized and sort of
Yeah,
paid,
and
paid
they're
some reparations, you know.
yeah, and and they're trying to learn from it and and be better, but yeah, some churches don't want to.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that thing in Guelph that because I drove past, we drove past there, and I
Yeah.
was just, you know, I was just screaming, "Oh, you bastards!"
I know, right? Like that's just unbelievable.
Yeah, like for people who didn't see that on Twitter or anything, it was the Catholic Church in Guelph had put up a sign saying "All children matter," and it's like, you know, clearly they didn't mean, they meant all children except the ones that everyone's focusing on right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like, oh, it's just, and I did write about a review of that to say how bad it was. But yeah, I just think it really is important that people learn about this stuff, and also, you know, understand that it goes back to Christian supremacism and it goes back to the doctrine of terra nullius. And actually, you know, that same doctrine of terra nullius was used to annex all the pagan lands in Europe as well. And then they were like, right, okay, that was the practice run. Now we're going to go and steal all the land in North America as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that was just, like it's mind-boggling to know that, like that one little doctrine was the cause to, millions of people are suffering.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is why Canada and the US need to renounce the doctrine of terra nullius.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah, and adopt UNDRIP immediately, and not in a watered down way.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's heavy stuff, and also, I mean, I've been reading Art Manuel's book on the unsettling Canada and the Reconciliation Manifesto, and he basically says, like, the reason for all the poverty and disastrous outcomes that are currently happening is because Indigenous people hold 0.2% of the land in Canada, and that's a Government of Canada statistic, for God's sake. And this is why the land back movement is so important. But then, you've got idiots on Twitter going, oh, but Indigenous people came from Europe originally 10,000 years ago. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's you just want to slam your face into a wall, like, with them saying stuff like that. Because it's just so ridiculous.
I mean, like, I bet that person, like, the island of Britain, for example, was settled just after the large ice sheet receded. So that would be about 8,000 years ago. So there isn't anyone in Britain that has been there longer than 8,000 years.
Yeah.
Except possibly I don't know. There is somebody who's supposedly genetically related to the remains they found in Cheddar Gorge Cave, which was pre-Ice Age. But the majority of people have been there for 8,000 years. I bet that those kind of people wouldn't try to say that somehow makes British people not part of, not British or something.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, I don't know. Yeah, like you just want them to read a book.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Preferably more than one. Like, Indigenous Rights by Chelsea Vowell as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And Art Manuel, and Art Manuel's dad wrote quite a good book as well, I believe. So
okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I think, but what also, there is a wonderful resurgence of Indigenous culture happening right now. So So that's
Yeah, yeah,
cause
there
for hope.
is, I know like a lot of, like for my generation, like I'm 40.
Yes. Oh, happy
Like,
birthday for the other
oh,
day.
thank you. Like us around my age, like we're kind of like the forgotten, generation, because, we were either in residential school or like our parents were. So, like we are the generation that kind of lost our footing, because we didn't know what to do,
Mm,
and it was still, taboo to learn our languages, learn our culture and stuff like that. But, like I know from the next generations, like my nieces and nephews, like they're immersed in the culture and learning it, and, like going to Maui Omis, which are powwows in Mi'kmaq,
mm,
and, and doing and celebrating their culture,
that's
and
awesome.
that's a beautiful thing to see,
Fantastic. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the like we have several parallels around our way, because there's the Six Nations, the
Yeah.
Haudenosaunee, and then the Mississaugas on the New Credit have got a little corner of the reservation, of the reserve,
Yeah.
which they bought back from the Six Nations in the 1860s, and so they have really nice powwow. I really like their powwow, because
Yeah.
it's much smaller and more kind of cozy and intimate.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really good. Can't wait to get back to that when it all reopens.
Yeah, me too. It's been so long.
Yeah, it seems ages. But yeah, that was lovely to go to. But yeah, and all the crafts as well. Like you've been doing the jingle cones and the ribbon skirts as well. That was a beautiful ribbon skirt you made the other day. It's
Oh,
really cool.
thank you. Yeah, I hope my sister likes it. She hasn't seen it yet. Yeah, it was my first one too that I made.
It's
So,
awesome. Yeah.
yeah, it was pretty powerful to make it, I have to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the masks that you made as well. You made really good
Yeah.
COVID masks.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank
great.
you. Yeah, I decided, like, like during COVID, I to quelch my my anxiety and my fear, I was going to do something productive, and that's what I did. I channeled all my energy and my focus into creating, and that really helped me a lot
Awesome.
during the first wave, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I learned to crochet well. So,
that I don't know how to do.
it's I found a video on YouTube and
Yeah,
just got stuck in.
because
yeah,
I do knit. Yeah, but
Oh,
I'm not really good at it.
I take my hat off to you then, because I can't knit for toffee. I am left-handed, so
Oh, okay. Yeah.
yeah, that makes it hard.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So is there anything else you would like to share?
Well, like we like, how can I put this? Like combating like anti-indigenous racism, or racism in general, or like even transphobia, homophobia, Islamophobia, anything like that. Like it's just taking it in strides, and it's okay to take breaks from it, because like our mental health is first and foremost, no matter who you are. It's okay to say no. Like today I'm not doing anything, because there's other people doing it. Like I always say, you are one person, but you can be that person for change. Like you are part of a bigger thing. Yeah. So there's hundreds of thousands of us that are all thinking similar thoughts, and doing the hard work of doing anti-racism, and and you're not going to know it all. I certainly don't know it all. And I've been dealing with racism since I was a kid.
Yeah.
I just, like, and you're going to make mistakes. I make mistakes when I certainly am dealing with racist people. you know. And so, you know, like it's just think about the bigger picture, but don't get overwhelmed by it. You know, you get the little stuff really helps a lot, you know, like writing MPs or saying to your family, hey, you know, like that's not a cool thing to say, you know. Yeah, it's the little things that really help.
Yeah, it's a cumulative process that we're all chipping away at the.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like I went to a NDP anti-racism course, and two lovely Black women facilitating it, and they shared the pyramid of white supremacy, and one of the things they said was basically the really scary stuff, like the Ku Klux Klan and actual full-on violence is near the top, and then right at the bottom is that racist uncle at the Thanksgiving dinner party and the off-color remarks at work, and the interesting thing is that by the fact that those things are seen as normal actually kind of upholds the other things, and by pulling out the bricks at the bottom of the pyramid, we're sort of chipping away at the pyramid upwards, but also mindful of the other thing I read recently, which was Ibram X. Kendi's How to Be an Anti-Racist, and he talks about how like anti-racism is getting policy changed. I'm like, wow, they just raised the bar.
That oh my God.
So I think I think it's but I definitely think it's a combination of chipping away at it and then and also challenging racist people and writing to the government to get them to stop doing racist policies.
I remember I forget this girl's name, but when I was younger, I was in a group called Youth Against Racism, and we were at one of our conferences, and this girl held up an onion, and she said, you know, racism is like an onion. You know, it has many layers, but you can peel them away and get to the core of it. You know, and that stuck with me. Like, you know, that I was 15 when I heard that, you know, so that stuck with me all my life. And I'm like, yes, you know, like that's what it is. You know, racism is just a bigger, you know, like just many layers.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. And they're all intertangled with each other.
You know, and you can say that with everything, like, you know, with homophobia, with sexism, with misogyny, you know, like there's so many layers and everything's always intertwined.
Yeah.
You know,
well, isn't it always noticeable as well that, like, you know, when you put the settler collector hashtag out there and I go, oh, right, go and report this. Go and, you know, and then you go down their timeline to find more things to report, and they're always anti-vaxxers, anti-maskers, climate change deniers, homophobes, racists, and all the rest, and misogynists as well, and it's
because they want their women barefoot and pregnant.
So it would seem. You know. So I definitely think it's all of a piece.
And it boils down to miseducation. You know, like, you know, because races or any kind of phobia is a taught, you know, thing, and it can be unlearned. You know. Yeah.
I think so. I think one of the most sort of pernicious things is the people who are like, but we're all equal, so we must treat everyone the same, and there must be, you know, like, that's not how it works in a colonial context, because you know, if you treat Indigenous people well, for one thing, Indigenous people are not being treated the same as everybody else, because all the reserves are chronically underfunded, and all the other things that go on, like, you know, unequal healthcare and unequal policing and all the rest of it. But you know, treating people all exactly in a Western style of cultural behavior, that's not going to work either.
No, it's not. You know, like, because we have to, like, destroy the system before we can even think about equality, you know, like that.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, I think it took me a while also to kind of understand what white supremacy actually is, because I kind of thought, oh, white supremacy, that's like the Ku Klux Klan and the extreme point of the pyramid of racism. And then I realized, no, white supremacy is organizing things for the benefit of white people. And it's like, yep, Canada is organized for the benefit of white white Anglo-Saxon Protestants kind of thing.
Yeah.
With a side order of Catholicism, it would seem. And it's when you realize that, it's like, oh my God, I live in a white supremacist society.
Yeah.
Bugger.
Yeah, and it's frustrating. You know, have you do you know about Peggy McIntosh? Have you read her?
The knapsack of
Yeah, like that's one of my favorite, like, yeah, that's one of my favorite, like, tools to, like, for people to understand what white supremacy is and what white privilege is. And it sums up everything, like, perfectly, like, to the T on what it is, you know, like. And I feel like that's a good tool to, like, you know, give to people that are getting it but not getting it all the way, you know what I mean?
Yeah. The "but I'm not racist" brigade.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think it's really hard to kind of look at that and go, you know, when you start out on this journey, and I mean, I've been been opposed to racism my entire life, but it's when you actually start to kind of read around the subject and go, right, okay, I might have had a racist belief lurking down the back of the sofa, you know.
Yeah, it's those unconscious biases that really get you, you know. I still have them, you know, and you know, it's constantly a learning process.
Yeah, and I think we just have to keep chipping away at it. Yeah, and even, you know, even if you're completely squeaky clean and don't have any unconscious biases, if you're just sitting there going, I am so pure, I do not have any unconscious biases, that's about as much use as a chocolate placard.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yes, he who is neutral in situations of injustice has chosen the side of the oppressor.
Exactly.
Desmond Tutu. Yes, a very good chap.
He is, yes.
I like him a lot. Yes. Well, this has been great. We should definitely do this more often, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I have you back anytime you want, you know, like, cool. I got, you know, I'm always here to lend a hand.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. It's been really great. And
yes, thank you very much.
Yeah, awesome. Okay.